Okay, so we're talking about the brand new release, Terrifier 3, just come out of the cinemas. It's once again written, directed, and edited by Damien Leone. It's the third full feature-length installment of the franchise and welcomes back David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown and Lauren Lavira as Sienna Shaw. We got Art, who's reintroduced in the cold opening dressed as Santa Claus in the present day. And it carries on where we left off with a post-credit scene of Terrifier 2, with Victoria in the asylum and her kind of giving birth to the head of arts and Chris Jericho, and film commences. Then we're 5 years later from that. We then see Sienna, her brother Jonathan, and they're struggling to rebuild their lives. Sienna especially, she can't move forward, suffering with delusions, severe PTSD, and she's in a asylum type of hospital herself. And she is released just in time for Christmas to go and stay with her aunt, her husband, and their daughter Gabby, who idolizes Sienna. And it is a bit of a ride. It's a hell of a ride. I'm going to come to Dave first of all, because I think Mike's got some differing opinions.
Somewhat spicier.
But I want to get...
I have spice.
I want to get Dave's take on this first, because we saw it together. So we went to a preview. It was one of these Odeon... Fright Fest things, something like that, yeah, not Fright Fest because that's in London, but it was an Odeon Scream season thing, and they basically don't tell you what the film is.
It's called like a spooky special.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But they don't actually tell you the film. But we suspected, and the clues that came out made it pretty obvious. And we went in, we got to say, quite hyped. Actually, we were really hyped.
I was really hoping it was going to be that. More than smart, actually. Yeah.
You watched it after Strange Darling, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
we
you're
went to
already
the pub.
kind of on a horror high. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but we've been in the pub for about 6 hours in between.
Doing work and stuff.
Yeah. So Dave, let's get your take. Spoiler free, obviously, for the first part of the podcast. What do you reckon to Terrifier 3?
I loved it. Honestly, I loved it. I really loved it. Like up until now, I really wanted to like them. Terrifier just didn't work for me. Liked the idea of it. Loved how popular it got online. Terrifier 2, Jesus Christ, get an editor. Yeah. It was better. It was much better. Lots of improvement. But third time lucky for me. It just delivered in every way. Honestly, in every way. And it really felt like going back in time and being in the 80s and like being at the height of the slasher craze. Because the thing was, as Joe said, we were in... a screen where we didn't know officially that it was going to be Terrifier 3. And so once the Terrifier 3 title card came on, there was an audible reaction from the audience.
A couple of girls were like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, there was an "Oh my god," and there was some
like amusing if it was Salem's Lot.
Yeah,
oh my god, imagine.
And I was actually expecting people to like walk out at the name, but no, I don't recall anybody leaving.
Not from our side. No.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of stuff online about people especially because the intro is particularly brutal.
Yeah. It gives you Leone gives you a bit of a warning. He gives you like 10 minutes to go if this is for you or not, because it's
pretty like
desperately awful stuff happens within
some of the most
minutes.
brutal kills are in the first 10 minutes. Yeah.
So you get that opportunity to get up and leave if it isn't for you in that moment.
I mean, it's so honestly quite restrained compared to the rest of the film, but yeah, it's a nice like kind of litmus test for you. Perfect for like situations like that when you don't know what the film is. But it was so fun to be part of it because it was a big screen. There were so many people there. Presumably there were a lot of people like us that had kind of followed the clues and were kind of hoping it was going to be Terrifier. And to just be part of that crowd, like everybody reacting and wincing and grimacing, like all the people on my row, I could see them just reacting to all the kills. And then to step outside after the film and just like the atmosphere, it was like being back at Fright Fest. Like you could just hear like little like groups of people just talking about this kill was my favorite, this kill was my favorite, I couldn't believe this happened.
The buzz.
And it was literally exactly like how I imagine the 80s being at the height of those. They could re-release Friday the 13th now and it wouldn't be the same, right? Like because
it needs a certain extra step of extremity and
just because times moved on and we've become desensitized, but this is I guess what that would have been like back then watching those films. And just the atmosphere and for me, like, I mean, the practical effects were almost, taken for red. Like they always excelled at practical effects. For me, the acting this time was basically flawless. Before I had some issues with the acting, but the acting universally, I would say, was brilliant. It was very funny. Well shot. I think.
It has its
well
levity.
scored.
It has its levity within the film.
And really, really, I loved it. I mean, I was so excited.
Yeah. I mean, for me, exactly the same as you. I loved it. I had such a great time watching that one with you, and then having that adrenaline pumping as well. When we left the theater, we're both kind of like, "Wow, what have we just experienced in this moment?" And then today, in fact, I've been to see it again. So I saw it a second time today, and I still love it. I still think it's incredible. There's so much to it for me, which I just love. It is full throttle in your face. It doesn't beat around the bush. It is like something that kind of would have come out in the 80s, but with that 21st century gore and the way that we do things now, and the levels of which they have to go to shock us in the same way that you would have been shocked back then. But you can see a lot of the style is of that era, and that's Leone. He's grown up with that. He's a big horror movie fan. Overall, it isn't just art. Art is a huge part of this, right? This craze for art. He's become a meme. He's a GIF. He's all over Reels and TikTok. He's everywhere, and he's got this very iconic look.
Yeah, it's a sort of phenomenon.
He was. I mean, he was the standout part of Terrifier 1, right? He was what made that film break out.
And in Terrifier 1, really, they went from just an idea of kills, and then there was nothing really else to it. There wasn't much of a story there. Because it was such a low budget film. The second film had about a budget of $350,000.
I think it was less.
Something like that.
$250,000.
Anyway, it's something like that, and it did such a phenomenal job with what it had. And it's amazing that this is the type of film that you would have made 30, 40 years ago, not one that you really make today. The way they did it, and it took them 3 years. Whereas this one was the first time they've had any kind of budget with about $2 million.
Still nothing.
It's still nothing, but.
It's big for an independent production.
Yeah, I mean, it is
especially
nothing,
an independent horror production.
It's nothing if you look at how films are made today and their overblown budgets, which they do not need.
Yeah, sure. We could have got 100 of these for one Joker 2.
Which don't even get me started on how that disgusts me so much. But for me, art is incredible. Like, I love the character. He's like instantly one of my favorite
all-timer slasher killer. Yeah, already.
But
mate, I disagree.
Wait. But it is also Sienna Shaw.
Yeah,
Sienna for me.
Absolutely.
She is badass, great final girl, like carried over. We've not really experienced a final girl to carry over in such a way ever since Laurie Strode. There's not many others that carry a franchise. Sydney as well, of course. Sydney as well. Yeah, but she is such badass. She's got the look. She's got all of that, what you need for a final girl. And she is the kryptonite of Art the Clown. And that's what I love about her as a character. She will fight back. So I really enjoyed her performance in this as well, and her dealing with the trauma, because you don't see much of that within horror films and within when the final girl comes back. The trauma isn't fully developed. And if it is, we've seen it with Sydney, and we've seen it in the more modern
like Halloween with Laurie Strode.
The Laurie Strode character, but I would argue that
not as well
it's some of the weakest. Maybe not the Halloween remake, or Halloween 2 of the, you know what I mean, Halloween... the third film called Halloween.
2018.
2018. That's a better way of putting it. But then from Halloween Kills then on, they fumble that character again, where I don't think they fumbled this character. So yeah, for me, fantastic. I would suggest it for anyone who loves a bit of horror and a bit of slasher, and the Art the Clown character, playful, childlike, absolutely brutal serial killer.
Go and see it at the cinema as soon as you can. And
absolutely.
Be part of those crowds.
And now...
Or don't.
And now it's over to Mike.
Or do.
Who has
do what you want. But
different perspective, which is going to be, hopefully, as valid. I'm sure it is.
So, to start with positives, right? Like, I think this is the best of the 3 Terrifier movies. But I have... And the practical effects are amazing. The kills are very good, especially some of the ones in the latter half where they go full gore are brilliant. But I think this movie has severe problems outside of that for me. I think whenever you're not seeing Art the Clown, who is by and large carrying this movie, I think the movie slows to a crawl. I think the narrative is somewhat nonsensical and too fantastical for me. I think it's overlong. These are all the same complaints I had about the second one. Granted, it's shaved half an hour off, but he still needs a better editor as far as I'm concerned. Tonally, it's a bit off as well. We whiplash between gruesome, excellent, as you say, 80s style practical effects murders that I do enjoy. Whenever art's on screen, I'm usually enjoying it. It made some very dark decisions that I wasn't expecting that I loved. But every time we get to the human characters, I feel like it drags to a crawl. It feels like I'm watching Scream, the TV show. There's elements to it that I don't mind, personally, with the human story, but I think it lingers a bit too long, which is another problem with the runtime. I think 2 hours is too long, and I enjoyed the movie. I just think it's got flaws, and I don't think it needs to be, and I don't think I would herald it as one of the best slashers of all time. It's just merely...
What about one of the best slasher killers of all time, slasher villains?
I would also disagree with that, but that might be a personal thing. I've seen killer clowns in many, many slasher movies.
But this is very different.
True, but it's mime-esque kind of comedy within the horror. And yes, it works better in Terrifier than it has done in any of the others. But at the same time, I don't think that makes it wholly unique. It just makes it the best rendition of that. I personally don't have a fear of clowns. I can understand people that do. But I don't think it's that well. I don't think it's as... It's not defined as more than a clown to me. It is a clown. A mime-esque clown. And that, I don't think, is strong enough characterization to fully propel that to being its own powerful, like, slasher villain, is what I would say. Yeah, you may disagree, but that's what I think.
Well, I do disagree, and we will go, and I think Dave might.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, I do disagree. Of course, I disagree, and we'll get into it. I'm sure.
Yeah, well, we'll get into it in a minute because we'll get into that with spoilers because I feel like it's much easier to argue
debate
this one out and debate it with spoilers. But just on a few of the other bits to do with the film before we get there, as I said, Damien Leone has written every single version of Terrifier, like from the first one to now. All Hallows Eve, he's involved with Art the Clown from the very beginning, and he's a really interesting character because, and outside of just this film, but it's a bit of a dream scenario for someone who loves horror films because he's grown up with them, loves them. He was working as a flower delivery man until the release of Terrifier 2. He was going part-time before he got to Terrifier 2. He's an inspiration in that way. So it's outside of maybe the review of Terrifier 3.
I love the contrast between flower delivery man and horror.
Yeah.
The polar opposite jobs. Yeah.
But it's just, I wanted to mention it as an aside, as a huge bit of respect to him.
Did he never work in special effects then before?
He is to do with that. He learnt though. He learnt on the fly. Like we're doing all this. He's figured it all out from himself. So he was working as a flower delivery man whilst he was making the Terrifier films, and especially in the second one, where they've got this budget but very low budget. He ended up going, screw it, I'm going to do the special effects. I'm going to do this, and he did. And this is the first time in Terrifier 3 where he's been able to outsource that. So he's no longer involved in the special effects of it because otherwise, as he said, it would have taken 3 years rather than the year it took to turn around this movie. And they were given so he had the option. This is something I really respect this guy like a lot because he carried on going until he got to the top, or, where he is now. Not the top, but quite up there. And he's kind of stuck with a dream and continuing to do that. And he's 40 odd now, and he bought his first house because of the success of Terrifier 2 and was able to then just take it on full time when he was doing this third one. He was approached by all of the major studios to take on the Terrifier franchise and spoke to them, and he could have had a much larger budget but he decided to stick with the artistic integrity to make Terrifier 3 because they were telling him they wanted to reboot the Terrifier franchise, that we just want to call it Terrifier. You know, like all that stuff I was just saying, that actually about how Halloween keeps being called Halloween. It's because they want a fresh start. So all the
to
lore.
pull in the maximum
A requel.
audience.
Yeah, oh, fuck that. Don't even talk to me about fuck.
Well, that's why he
fucking
preloaded
requels.
a lot of violence right at the start of the movie, right? To make sure that, like,
Yeah, exactly.
it'd put off any executives reading it, or at least show them what they're in for. They're not going to limit
He
this.
knows that had he have taken it in the studio, because they wanted Art the Clown. They wanted to
Yeah.
own Art the Clown as a character.
Why did you say it's breakout? It's market, like perfect market.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's-
But
yeah.
they would have cut that first scene, would have not happened in the way it happened. Scenes which happen later on where art crosses the line quite a lot within horror, within the tropes of horror. You know, you don't see what art does very often in a film that is got a wide release. Okay, you may see it in some kind of grittier horror and something less
Well, they'd
something
wanna-
less humane.
yeah, tone down the gore, add a romance. sort of
Yeah,
plot,
yeah.
Those kind of by the numbers. We need to sell this to the widest audience possible kind of beats.
You know, and then this is the first one, Terrify 3, like unions have got involved with it, the making of it. They've almost like hazed them. Like they were really hard on them during the filming about like the blood stuff they were using, what was in them, what's the contents, and stopped filming when they didn't like what they were seeing. And Leone has said it's like they were hazing us, that we are now in the big leagues, and they've taken a much bigger part of that. The budget's bigger, so he's focused on this one in filming and working with the actors, which is why perhaps a lot of the characterization is better within this film, whereas in the second one, some of it's a bit dodgier. That's because there wasn't much direction to do with the actors. It was, you know, he didn't have the time with everything else he was doing. But there's more pressures on him as well. But he's on it in other ways. Budgetary issues means that if it's a flop, then he's got a lot to answer for. And he continued. He was given the independent studio they've used for this. They basically said it's gonna come out here. It's a hard deadline. There's no getting over that, and we're doing this with it. And basically, they had the concept it was going to happen at Christmas before they'd written a script. So he wrote a script, made it.
Who had the concepts? The executives?
No, Leone.
Oh, Leone. Yeah.
Yeah, he had the idea of doing a Killer Santa, but could never tell how to actually do it. He never had an idea of how it was going to work. So instead, he went, "Oh, let's do this with art at Christmas." It gives art a new lease of life. It adds to his character, but it also is something of mine, a dream of mine, to do a killer at Christmas. Because Killer Santa on its own, he said, but I love the horror that is within Christmas time. So Black Christmas, and he said something about one of the what's the short stories? One of them set at Christmas. One of the very famous stories at Christmas, like one of the Tales from the Crypt or something.
Oh, yeah. One of the Tales from the Crypt episodes is like a murderous Santa Claus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the second ever episode.
That's it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the sort of stuff his vision
Yeah,
was.
there's loads. There's like Silent Night, Deadly Night,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's Silent Night, Bloody Night as well.
I always thought, I was watching Terrifier 3, and I always thought that Art as Santa was such a good fit because he already carries around that big black bag full of
Exactly.
Like, weapons.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah.
come on,
Goodies.
it's
All,
perfect.
all he needs is the suit, basically.
Yeah.
And so they've been able to really work on this, and his story is so interesting. I recommend, when it comes to Leone, just if you need some inspiration of why to carry on chasing a dream, Leone's story is like the one. It's the grit and the determination to keep going, even if you're like over the age of 30. You can actually make it later in life, and you don't have to have all the success at the beginning. You know, he's really interesting as a guy. Before we get into spoilers, what did you reckon to some of the performances? So some of the returning cast. So we've got the obvious one, David Howard Thornton. How do you see his portrayal as Art? Do you think it's grown in this one? Is he?
Yeah, I was surprised that he was still able to do things with Art that he hadn't done in the other ones already. Like I said, I mean, like there was always elements of levity, but there was like kind of genuine glee and excitement in some of his scenes that I really enjoyed. Regarding some of the other performances, I thought that Lauren Lavera was good actually in Terrifier 2. I did like her, and I thought I liked her as a final girl. I think I may have said to you, Mike, when we were watching it. Can't remember. But I felt apart from her, nobody else really stood out in that.
In the second one.
In the second one, yes. But this one, she was phenomenal in this. Like, I really, really think she was amazing.
She was very good.
Really
She does a very good portrayal for me.
And I also felt that there was no weak members of the cast this time either. Like, her brother was much improved, in my opinion.
I like the interesting parallel between their recoveries and how they're dealing with it. You know, he's gone to university. She's very much stuck. She's been in the hospital, mental issues a lot. And he's very much trying to sweep it under the rug and just get on with life. I also quite like the idea of they brought in some of these more famous actors to work.
Oh, like small little
one scenes like the whole Santa scene in the bar. Yeah,
two like very famous
no spoilers with it,
cameos.
But,
very famous character actors, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And they said David Howard Thornton has said he knew he had magic in that scene. There was just something they were playing off each other.
That is one of the best scenes in the movie.
Yeah.
That is one of the scenes I would herald as good stuff in there.
Yeah. And it is, you can see them having fun with it. And also the mall scene, which is interesting, is that Thornton comes from a theatre background. He's a theatre actor first. And apparently the mall, they didn't shut off the upper, like the circle.
No,
so
really.
People were like clapping his performance and like giving him like theatre responses. So he was able to work more with that as well. Really cool. Like the ideas, and it's still such independent cinema in a way, even though they got more of a budget. They're still independent and fun. And that's the idea of this. It was still fun. And apparently he is the best with the kids. So even in full art, like the kids come in with trepidation and they end the day just absolutely loving it.
No way, really?
Like, he's apparently, because he was a school teacher as well.
Oh, right.
So he's got a really interesting background. He loves kids and he just like is a really good entertainer. For them when they come on, the girl who wasn't in the movie, but she was in the teaser about it being at Christmas. She came in apparently the first day and was like, "Oh my god!" Like you can imagine, as you would if you saw Art the Clown in the same way.
Yeah,
that's how I'd feel now.
yeah. But she left absolutely not. She was like by his side for the whole time of the shooting of the movie.
Well, some people behave that way, just like your average clown, not even your horror makeup clown. So
Yeah.
Quite a threatening presence. Yeah.
I also liked. I'm not always a big fan of the kids in these movies, but I thought the portrayal of Gabby by Antonella Rose was really, really good. Like she did a very good, based very much in reality, performance of someone who just idolizes an older person, not really seeing their mental health issues and just seeing them for them. And I thought that was a nice touch into the movie. And again, another story of her within the production was that she was apparently a professional trooper. Like she would be crying her eyes out and think, "Oh my god, we've scolded her for life! I can't believe we've done this." And they would like end the take, and she'd be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And then you go, "Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah."
Just doing a bit of acting.
Yeah, just acting. So there's some really interesting. It's like family orientated behind the scenes, and it just makes me appreciate the film even more. So I think it's now time to go spoilers. So we're going to go spoilerific. And we're going to delve deeper. We're going to tease out all the little intricacies.
Tease it out. Yeah.
But if you haven't seen it yet, go and see it. And then you can get involved in this discussion we're about to have. And please leave a comment and see.
Shout out my people that agree with me and think it's a bit poo.
You mean no one? There's going to be no one on your side.
Flooding the comments.
Actually, number one film in the world right now.
Yeah.
Number one.
Oh, yeah, no bad movie's ever been successful.
In France, it is the first film in France since the mid-2000s to have their highest rating.
Yeah, Saw 3 was
you have to be 18 to go in. There's no other way of getting in. And in America, it's unrated.
Stinks a bit of marketing, though, doesn't it, I guess?
Yeah, but it's genius marketing because they haven't had to spend
If they'd ever rated Human Centipede 2, it would have also got a...
No, it wouldn't.
But this is...
People would see it on the first day and then shit all over it.
The artistic
People
value.
love it. People see it and they love it.
This is
no,
so much
he's
more
on about
artistic
age
value.
rating, though, isn't he? So yeah.
Anyway, let's cut that. Let's cut that bit out. Okay. So you're spoiling Warner is now. Now Mike's opened his beer.
That's the the warning sound.
So let's get into a little bit. I want to talk about maybe not art, but the idea that you didn't enjoy the other parts of the film. It's interesting to me.
I think it's a bit strong to say I didn't enjoy them, but I think they're a bit overlong and somewhat overdrawn.
Account.
I don't. Zing. Yeah, I mean, I don't object to what you said about the performances. I think specifically the main woman, whatever.
Yeah, Lauren Levera.
Yeah, she puts in a good performance. My problem isn't with their performances at all. It's with the writing and the pacing and the tone. Personally, I think it's a bit whiplash. It's a bit. Especially when you come off such a high with one of Art's kills, specifically, for example, one of the best ones, which is in the bar, and then you go back to the suffering, traumatized woman. I mean, it to an extent, you've got to feel a little bit like we're back to this before we get to the violence and the murder.
Well, don't you think it would have diluted Art if it was nothing but Art?
But I preferred the first one to the second one. Because of brevity. It knew what it wanted to be, which was a slasher movie. It didn't really care about character development or story because it didn't need to. It knew its selling point was violence and practical effects, and I was on board with that. I don't feel it's necessary or important when your selling point is violence and good practical effects to overdress it with a lot of time spent on the story.
He wants to be more than that, though. I mean,
It is more than that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying he's failing to do more than that.
Well, I disagree with you entirely, though, because this scene you're on about where he meets Santa and is at the same time, in parallel to that, is the last scene of Sienna having anything of a normal life ever again. Now, obviously, that context doesn't itself appear when you're watching it for the first time, because I watched it again today. I noticed that scene with Art is broken up by Silent Night playing in the background and her talking to her auntie and being like, oh, I feel normal. I actually feel just good in life. Like, things are good. And then she has a reflective moment saying how much she misses her mother. And then you skip back to Art, who's brutally murdering these three men in this bar. And this moment is the last moment which Sienna thinks Art might be dead. This is the last moment she's at peace. And so going to that and her recovery in that and being at home, that's the last time she feels any sort of a normal life. That is at the same time, I loved actually that was happening with that in the background and knowing that.
Yeah, I don't have a particular problem with that. I just think the length of some of these artless scenes bogs the movie down a little bit, especially in the latter half of the movie.
But then
it reminds me a little bit, kind of an offensive comparison.
Oh, spit it out.
Of some of the worst Godzilla movies where you're just
come on.
tapping your fingers waiting for Godzilla to make his next appearance.
What the hell?
I know, I completely disagree. So I couldn't disagree harder.
Fair enough.
Because at the end of the film, where it's the final showdown and Sienna gets the sword, I wanted to see Art die. I wanted to see Victoria be beheaded like she was. I wanted to see the end. I wanted to see Art get his comeuppance for killing children, women, Santa Claus. Like, he's the most despicable. There is no point in the film that I'm actually rooting for Art. I think this is a really good thing that Damien Leone does, because these days, you watch a Halloween film, you just want Michael Myers to just kill as many people as possible. You want Jason Voorhees just to murder an entire fleet of teenage kids. You want that to happen, but in this film, you get enough of the characters and their development.
It didn't speak to me, and they weren't developed enough for me. I wanted Art to just demolish them and move on. It's all good with me.
Because what is Art without Sienna? Like,
oh, he did fine in the first one without her.
no, but he
That
didn't.
was barely a film. There was like nothing to it.
It was kill strung together, and the moment they had the chance.
So is this one with filler.
No, it's not filler. It's not filler. It's not filler.
I'm being a bit derisive there on purpose.
I know.
I know there is merit to these scenes. My complaint is merely the percentage of the movie that is made up with them and their placing in the movie. If they were more front-loaded, in a quote unquote traditional sense for a slasher, maybe I would have been okay with.
But that's one of my biggest critiques of the original Friday the 13th is that it is like an hour of these kids just setting up camp, and then the killing starts.
But
and
that
it
is
gets good.
supposed to be where
It's
you make
boring.
the character development. Okay, the character development in Friday the 13th is done shittily. But if it was a better movie, that you wouldn't have minded that hour.
No, but I'm fed up of that trope of it being an hour and then the kill start. I want my kills nice, evenly spread and art is like the kills are so intricate. Most of the time you watch a slasher film and it's a one done. Art is like a child. He plays with his toys and he sets these huge events up, and you see that. You don't see Michael Myers in the original Halloween setting up the gravestone with Annie on or whatever. You don't see any of that.
I would love that, though.
Yeah.
Where's that cut?
But you get that with art. You get him setting all of this up, and you see it. You see him with his ice gun. You see him.
Yeah,
do all this.
I love. I mean, yeah, you're not going to catch me saying anything bad about those scenes. I love the pragmatism in the way that he does things, the way he's just basically thrust into this situation, and it's going to go wrong, but you have no idea how it's going to go wrong, when he's going to do his things to these people. He plays along with it. You get a huge amount of great facial expressions that are very well written into the story,
Well, it's
especially
like
into this
that quote. It's Hitchcock, isn't it, about attention, or the bomb under the table? That thing with art, when he interacts with people that don't know who he is, because And yeah,
it's not about the fact that it happens; it's how it happens or when it happens.
Yeah.
Do you know the only two people that have ever gotten away from art he hasn't tried to kill? Can you guess? It happens in Terrifier 3. Can you guess which two characters just kind of get away because of his excitement? Well, it's the two women in the bar, like flirting with Santa.
Oh yeah,
he's so excited to see Santa that he just like barges past these women and they get away. Yeah. So he's so like thinking, oh my god, that's the real Santa Claus. Like, that's like the best scene. I love that scene.
I also love that scene.
It's incredible.
If that scene was taken out of context, if I saw a trailer and it was just that scene, I'd be like, well, this is going to be one of my fucking favorite movies I'll ever see. Yeah,
I showed my mum that scene because it was released as a little teaser, and even she enjoyed it. She hates the concept, so I told her about. I literally said it the next day when I watched it. I said, "Oh, the kill at the end where they shove this like glass down a tube down her throat, and then put rats in." She's like, "I don't even want to know. I'm not gonna have nightmares just because of that." But then I showed her also the mall scene where when the bomb
bombs
goes
the
off.
children.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes me a bad person, but
that's my favorite kill. I think
I never audibly laugh out loud at a movie, especially in a cinema. I audibly laughed out loud when the children got exploded.
Yeah, no, because I called that right.
I'm so used to it.
Yeah, as a joke. You said it as a joke.
I also thought, is that a bomb?
Yeah.
And then because of my pre-framed mind of, okay, I'm in a cinema, this is a mainstream movie, it's not going to be a bomb.
It's not going to happen.
Even though I'd seen the kid at the start be decapitated and chopped into pieces, I'm like, well, he's not going to blow up a bomb and kill like 20 kids. And he did. Oh, loved it.
I think you like this film.
I like 50% of this film. It's the other bits that drag it down,
you are
man.
so wrong. No, because I genuinely gave a shit about the final girl and her family.
I couldn't. The reason I couldn't wasn't because of the characterizations, and partly it was because of the length of some of those scenes. But it was, I hate the story with the magical sword.
Why not? Why not do that?
The fantasy. It's a bit like. It's a bit like Jason Goes to Hell with the voodoo man with his special powers that can take out Jason. It's a lot like these late in a franchise where they invent fantasy things to be able to kill the immortal being.
What's Chucky? Well, Chucky's your favourite.
Yeah.
Okay, Chucky's quite magical in a sense.
Yeah, tell me about the fantasy hand-waved away weapon to defeat Chucky. There isn't one.
No, but I like this because it's comic books. It's like it's a comic book. Like
and it elevates her to here because he's like a supernatural being, right?
Yeah,
it elevates her, and she's ostensibly a human being, to a supernatural.
Maybe that's what I don't like.
To make her.
She is Superman.
Yeah.
He is Lex Luger. He is like.
Yeah, there's something about that rubs me the wrong way, and I don't like it.
Oh, because for me it's the opposite. Because
it's almost making it a superhero movie. It's almost making it this kind of fantastical movie that I don't want it to be. That seems at odds with what a slasher is to me.
Well, no, because I would totally disagree. Because where do slashers go when they keep coming up with sequels? they become fantastical. You've already said about Jason Voorhees.
But those are the ones I don't like.
Yeah, I know, I understand that. Oh, I'm not saying that specifically. I'm saying that these films eventually end up in this fantastical place. So you go to Jason like that, you get the Thorn trilogy, and it becomes all magical and voodoo-y. And within these big established franchises, this always happens at the tail end when they are tailing off,
losing steam.
When they're losing steam.
Well, you're saying that they're owning it early, basically.
They're owning the idea of that, and they're making this trope, this not very well liked trope of slasher villains and movies, a thing, and recontextualizing it to make it work and to make it a big part of it. And I love that, because it's like, yeah, own that shit, make it now, because how do you keep bringing Art back if you kill him? Well, there's only one way to do that. You make it fantastical. That, you know, and you cannot have a despicable character like Art win every movie, because that leaves everyone way too depressed. He kills kids. Oh, let's let him get away unscathed. No, you can't do that. You cannot within this. For me, I would have left if it had left the cinema and Sienna had died and Art had won and they both fall into the pit and died at the end. That would have upset it for me. I would have destroyed the film.
I would have been happy with the downer ending, because in a similar way to you saying you can't end it on a downer note, there's people that say you can't bomb 30 kids in a mall, right? It's all about brutality, and it's all about extremity. No, I'm happy with the extremity pushing itself.
It's about the story.
But you can bomb.
But if you're raging against what's acceptable in a mainstream kind of horror movie, and you're presenting something that's
but it's actually
extreme,
like within the framework of a relatively traditional like hero journey story, like, which is satisfying. And so, which is why I connect with Sienna, like, because she goes through a relatively archetypical.
But as soon as it makes it fantasy, I'm less satisfied by that, because she's no longer just a normal person being able to overcome a difficult situation. She's somehow chosen. She's somehow special, and it's not you anymore. It's not relatable anymore. It's you're watching a fantasy. You're watching a fable.
Yeah, but she's also not like a Rey Skywalker, because she has gone through a lot to be where the point. Everything in her life has been sacrificed. She's only got one purpose at this point in the story. And, you know, there's literally just Gabby left. Otherwise, they could take her over. Like,
yeah, but that's usually a superhero or chosen one trope, isn't it? They lose the people around them. That's what...
Yeah, but Rey Skywalker does it. I'm saying modern wise, and especially with female.
Yeah,
characters.
but that's an especially shit version of that trope, isn't it? Rey Skywalker. Like, this is better than that.
And as much as I love Laurie Strode, Laurie Strode is a bit weaker than Sienna. Like, she's.
I love that she's normal.
Yeah,
and that she has to resort to normal methods to overcome.
But then why should a different franchise with a different opinion stick to those rules?
I mean, I think Laurie...
I'm not saying it has to. I'm just saying I don't like it if it doesn't. It's basically what I'm saying.
I think Laurie does objectively less than Sienna does, like, excluding all the supernatural elements. Like, on a purely human level that we can empathize with, Sienna does. She goes through and sacrifices and achieves personally by herself objectively a lot more, and contends with a lot more than Laurie does, excluding all the supernatural elements.
We're talking about Terrifier 3 or the previous. I don't remember the previous one so well.
We're just talking about 3.
I think it's a very similar struggle, isn't it? Like, Laurie Strode loses all of her friends and is put through a sustained night of horror, which doesn't have a resolution. She's almost certainly going to be tortured the whole of her life in a similar way to Sienna. Okay, you don't see it, but I think there's definite parallels there. And I think it weakens her struggles when she's got this fantastical background where it's like you can allude to the fact that she's basically fated to survive. She's fated to be the yin to his yang. She's empowered in some special way that other people aren't.
But then, in a way, they do sometimes say Laurie Strode is like that. She is the obsession.
Because of the sequels, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, we can ignore all that stuff.
Well, how about, let's look at it in... Let's put it up against Halloween briefly. The new one, so 2018. Let's look at 2018 as Halloween 2. Sorry, as Terrifier 2. Halloween 2018 and Terrifier 2. So you follow along. Laurie wins at the end. Sienna wins at the end. She decapitates Art the Clown. And in Halloween, she burns Michael dead, as so it seems. And in the second one, magically, they both come back.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you're about to say Terrifier 3 versus Halloween Kills, Terrifier 3 is 20 times
but look
better.
look how they've both dealt with a sequel that they both know is not going to be the last sequel in their franchise, in their trilogy. Because we can take Terrifier, the original one, out of it for a second. And if we're looking at this as a trilogy of movies about Sienna, then the Halloween really messed up from Halloween Kills when it came to Laurie Strode. Whereas this one is just adding more lure to it. It's adding extra elements to Sienna character and who she is.
Yeah.
Whereas they basically did a Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, and just kept her in a bed for the whole time, for the whole movie. And then in the third one, they just destroyed the idea of what Michael Myers was and who Laurie Strode was.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen in Terrifier 4.
Well, I'm begging them.
Yeah.
Damien Leone, I'm begging you. Anything but
I'm
that.
thinking that because the first one was 2.5 hours long, the second one was 2 hours long. He's had 4.5 hours to sell me on this background lore and this narrative and this good versus evil, this fated kind of mystical, fantastical element. And I don't know whether I'm the only one, but it's failed for me. I don't think it has. Sold me on that.
I don't think it's been particularly well developed yet. I think they're saving it was introduced in number 2, and I don't think it was particularly...
but like defending a movie because they're saving it for the sequel is one of my most hated things.
No, because you have to save something in the back. You have to put something on the back burner, otherwise you don't have a sequel. Like if you
put everything into the movie that is now, and then you build upon.
And you're saying Damien Leone hasn't done that.
I'm saying he doesn't. I don't think he necessarily knows each movie as he makes it is going to be a success.
No, he doesn't.
No
he didn't
way
even
of
know
knowing.
this was going to be a
so
success.
I don't think he'd leave something ridiculously critical like that outside of it if he could put it in.
He's plotted Sienna's journey out, so he knows where that's going. He knows the ending. He just doesn't know how many movies are going to be within the Art Sienna franchise.
Yeah. Sounds a bit like George R.R. Martin, though. I feel like it's like vague kind of
you mean-
conclusions,
hold on.
and then he's machinating how it's actually
he
going to
made
get
this
to that
within
end point.
a year. When was the last time George R.R. Martin did anything of relevance?
Yeah, but he made it in a year, and
2011.
it doesn't. How? In what way does this propel the lore? This third one.
Because we see at the end, they add to it at the end. She can now. There's like something about healing, like her hands heal. And
So that's the only addition to the lore.
No,
what about
it's not.
Art's lore? It's revolutionized. Like there's so much added to him.
You know, art isn't art anymore. Art is like a demon. Like Art the Clown, the human being, died at the end of the second one and was brought back to life by the demon because it had to be a entity which is of pure darkness that a demon would be able to take over that spirit. So Art in this one, the rebirth of Art through Victoria is a demon.
Yeah,
not
which is why he's
the
got
human.
Victoria or whatever her name is at the start. But it just seems so. For me personally, it's such kind of contrived and not in. It's like for example,
It's batshit crazy. It's great.
Friday the 13th, right? My favorite one, the one after the Gardener one, where there's just a bolt of lightning.
Six.
Yeah, bolt of lightning hits Jason Grave. He just hops right out and he's just back at his
He's a zombie now,
murderous
yeah.
shenanigans. That's fine. You don't need to sell me on this.
Well, then
this
why are you
overwhelm-
complaining about lore?
If you're gonna do lore, do it correctly.
Well, he is.
Either
He's doing a
don't
good
do it
job.
at all or do it correctly. I don't think he's doing either.
How
of
is he
those.
not doing a good job? Like the father who died of a brain tumor is he?
So we're just going to invent a demon that wasn't in the previous movie.
No, it was. It's the little girl. It's the girl who Art was seeing in number 2. That character who only he could see was plotting his movements is now
Right.
embodying Victoria.
Yeah, that was how I read it as well. Although I don't know if it's explicitly said, but that was how I read
That
it.
is the take. That
Yeah,
is Victoria has been taken
I
over.
think
by
a lot of
the
it was
little
in
girl.
right at the end of the second one, wasn't it? About the finding the sword as well.
Yeah, the sword was in the Terrifier. The Terrifier
ride,
is a ride at a theme park.
And why were they there? Maybe I need to watch the second one.
Yeah.
Again. But at the same
It's
time,
a brush up on the law, mate. Stop bad mouthing it. You don't
I
know
fucking
it.
hated the second one and thought it was worse than the first one, apart from that big bedroom scene.
I have no issue with the first one. I just think it is what it is, and I don't.
I think
mind
the
that.
first one is basic, and I think you're kind of hating on it because it is basic. But the fact that I
Are you
like
talking to me or Dave?
well, he said it, but I think you're.
I don't mind
somewhat
it.
Yeah, but you like the second one more.
Oh, I much prefer the second one because there's actually a story.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think the lack of narrative or anything other than the slasher tropes hurt too,
But as a bunch
especially
of
with
kills,
the runtime.
the first one is good, and it's really and you know, when they are building up that story, they kill off who you think is going to be the final girl, and they break the rules because Art like shoots
Just
her
shoots her.
dead.
I love that.
And then he shoots her. He doesn't just shoot her. And this is what Leone said. He said that he doesn't just shoot her. He shoots her over and over again and disfigures her. That is what a Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers would do if they had a gun. They wouldn't just do it. They would maim that person. They would destroy disfigure them.
Complete destruction. Yeah,
And then Victoria takes over as that final girl in that, and then gets her face eaten off by Art at the end of the movie, which is why she looks like that in this one now. I mean, I love the inclusion of Victoria in this still. Like, I love that she's still in this.
I did like that.
They basically like rebooted her character.
And
it
don't
was
you
really
love the
good what they did.
parallel that Victoria and Sienna are there as final girls, and like the one has gone down this hugely dark path, and the other one,
But the other
is
one
the
was
light.
possibly fated to join if the dark.
Yeah, I mean they literally tried to pass the torch in that way, didn't
Yeah.
they? And it failed. Yeah.
And I like that. There is elements of it I do like.
Yeah.
There's just elements of it I don't like. and I'm not saying it by any means. This is a bad movie. This is a good movie. It's just not up there with the best slashers.
I mean, I really
Maybe
disagree.
Terrifier 4, if it elevates once again, maybe finally. I just need a bit more to.
Yeah, but that's the
Maybe.
point. Like, we've never had a fully formed. Sorry, we've only ever had a fully formed slasher franchise to go off. We've never watched them as they've come out one by one. Like the original Halloween, like Laurie and Michael weren't brother and sister until Halloween 2. Like that lore kept building and building over time. We weren't given all the parts. We just had the puzzle pieces.
I mean, maybe it is similar to something like Star Wars, right? Where the prequel trilogy came out and everybody hated on the lore and was like, what the fuck's this? This changes my favorite thing. I'm not going to accept this. And then later on down the line, that's canon. That's everybody accepts that because there's new things to complain about. So, like,
but there is no lore. This is original. This is what I love about it. It's original. It's a slasher villain, which he contends with all of the best slasher villains. Like he is right up there in popularity. Like over time, he's not even hit the heights yet. Like he's still got so much more to go as Art. Like people know him now, and his face is familiar, but you still get comments online saying, "Who is this clown I keep seeing?" You know, he's not on the level of Jason, like the iconic hockey mask, but he will be, and that is going to build and build over time. So I just think.
Yeah, to be living that is really exciting.
I'm
It is
just
really
excited, like you say. Like,
well,
living it
gives,
so
it gives
exciting.
me a lot of happiness to see an independent horror movie, a big slasher movie, having this much power. I just wish I liked it more, and I don't. It's like what you said about the first two. I still feel that way about the third one.
See, that's what I was thinking as well. Is that maybe it's going to take one more for you to kind of connect.
Maybe
to
it just needs something. I mean, maybe it's a context thing. Maybe it's like a I need ancillary information to make it resolve kind of the something inside me that calls bullshit on some of the things that it does. Like with Mad Max Fury Road, when Furiosa came out, it retrospectively actually made me like Fury Road just because I had some context and substance.
Well, that's insane, but fine.
No.
So within this, it's interesting you say about the lore and everything, because Leone writes it in the way he does because he's hugely into comic books. He's writing what he knows best, and Sienna is his version of himself within within this. Like, out of all the characters, he connects most with Sienna. You can see that with the idea of the father being an illustrator. He's an illustrator, and then he started to get visions when he had a brain tumor, and seeing that she's going to be something more than just a regular person. She is genuinely special. But when he's handing over the picture of is it the Valkyrie?
Valkyrie,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, when he is handing over that picture, they get a vision together. He sees her future. He's handing across her future within that picture, and you can see him getting this terrible vision of all her family around her dying, and then she can see something behind her. Or what is it? She references there's something there, So this is there within her story, and this is what he writes because he has grown up with comic books as his medium. He's chosen this. And he's telling this story, and he loves horror films as well. So he's connecting them all into what he loves.
Maybe it's because I'm kind of put off by the comic book kind of bleeding into my horror that I love. Maybe I'm threatened by it. I don't know.
But I like the take on it. I like a spin on it. I mean, yes, you could have just a normal final girl who's just normal, everyday girl next door type person, but this is a slasher. Final girl for 21st century. She's badass, but she's also still very sexy.
But I think it would be more powerful for her to be badass, but not also special and fantastical and chosen by the gods or whatever.
Yeah, but then why do horror villains always end up there?
Think about Sarah Connor, right? Sarah Connor is an absolute badass in the second one, especially.
Yeah,
she doesn't need any fantastical or kind of connection to anything. She's just cool.
She's literally connected to John Connor, and that's why.
Yeah, John Connor is the chosen one.
But it doesn't make her special, right?
Yes, it
does. It makes her important.
Yes, it does. That's why they try to kill her. Yes, it does.
I don't mean.
Yes, that's why they try to kill her.
You're using a different version of special to what I'm fucking trying to say.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I don't mean special narratively. She's a character in the movie. Of course she's special narratively. I mean special in terms of her capabilities. She's still a normal woman.
So Sienna
is normal in capabilities.
She's got a magical sword that does special things.
It's not even that well
magical
defined.
armor that we may see in the next
clear,
one.
Exactly how that all plays into it. I don't know. We don't know what her dad knows.
Yeah, exactly. It's not explained.
No, because there's a sequel that's coming out, and they haven't just front loaded everything into the one thing. Otherwise,
you just wait till the next episode.
Otherwise, the next one would be the first Terrifier, where there wasn't much of a story because they've used it all up.
Yeah,
what's the point of a sequel if you don't have a story to tell? There's no point.
There's a happy medium between a movie with no story, like the first one, and then just having your story spread across 20 movies for no reason. It was a
completely satisfying, self-contained story with elements and hooks and questions that can be answered that will retrospectively.
Yeah,
implement.
I don't think it massively answered a lot of questions from the second one and added a lot of new questions.
I can see why maybe that it went from nothing to everything between 1 and 2. That we have all this lore that wasn't involved in the first one. But this is Leone's vision. His first film was Experiment, and it's a great experiment and it's interesting. But that's what I love about this is that we're seeing this natural progression. We're seeing the threads come together. We're seeing something being woven together, which is taking its time and doing it. And I was very satisfied with that movie. I didn't need more. I didn't need less. I got about right. It's like fucking Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The third one is just right. That third bowl of porridge.
That was how I felt as well.
Yeah.
And to be honest,
the Bears might have had 6 people in their family when I walked in. So.
And, the other thing, we've had 2 clown movies this month. We've also had Joker 2, right? Which they did not need to make because the first one was a standalone movie which had a lovely narrative which ended and we were fine. We didn't need anything else. And then they made a second and they didn't have a story to tell. They didn't do that with this. There is an overarching story between Art and Sienna which needs more. Unless you want a 4-hour movie in one go, there's a huge
already.
There's a huge story. There's a huge story to tell between these characters. And honestly, Sienna needs to win.
Yeah, I wanted to win as well.
She has to win.
It doesn't diminish Art.
The way it's built it up, she has to win. Yeah.
Which is good. I like that.
That's what I want. Yeah.
It should be obvious. Not everything good needs to be subverted. And this is what bugs me about modern day films and media in general, is that everything that is done can't just be what it is. It has to have some sort of subversion. There has to be something a lot more to it. Where I'm like, no, just give me a good fucking story and give me this look and let me live in this for a little while and just enjoy what I have on the front of me. I do not need you to then retrospectively fuck up your franchise. Just give me this now and just let me devour it and let me enjoy Art the Clown. Let me enjoy Sienna and just love the fact that we have an iconic villain in 2024. We haven't had that. We haven't ever grown up with this iconic slasher villain. The last one is Ghostface that made the rounds. And we were far too young when Scream came out to see Ghostface as ours. This one, like Leone, is made this for horror fans of now. This is like, we can embody this character. Millennials, later millennials and Gen Z now have Art the Clown. We actually have an iconic 80s-esque slasher villain for ourselves.
I mean, I love that. I just wish the movies were more self-contained. But what I really wish is that, okay, Art can be, Michael Myers. Maybe Jason's on the horizon. Maybe I'll love the new one. Maybe it won't be a clown, which I don't want. But maybe it'll be something else. Yeah.
But I take issue with the
Another
idea.
franchise. Yeah.
Well, I take issue with the idea that you want them as standalone movies because we already have that. We have that 1,000 times over. Why not have Sienna be important? Because
if you want long form entertainment, make a TV show. Is my
It's not,
always
though,
argument.
because-
I don't want
okay.
I don't want one plot stretched across multiple movies.
It's
well,
not-
then you hate The Godfather.
It's not one plot.
No, because the Godfather is not. You can't say that the first one. We're not going to talk about the third one, but the first. We're not going to. You can't say
Just
pull me back. You can't say that 1 and 2 aren't completely standalone movies. You could.
Yeah, but
you
they
could
have-
watch them. They have a beginning, middle, and end, and you don't need any more.
But
to
I'd
that
watch them
story.
in order. If I'd never watched them before, I wouldn't watch 2 before 1. Because it's the character is developed. You literally see him as like a green kid in the first one, and then he's a mafia boss in the second one.
But you would not be lost if you just watched the second one.
No, but no one's going to be lost if they haven't seen Terrifier 2 because we're reintroduced to the character. We get like a reboot.
Yeah.
When he does that kill at the beginning in
yeah.
the house.
Yeah, I guess
In the cold opening.
But it's so the fact that it needs like an introduction kind of catch up.
It didn't need it. He did it to open up the franchise to people who've never watched it before because he knew there's probably going to be a lot of people who haven't because it is a
But that somewhat
small
implies
independent
that it's
movie.
not standalone. You need what happened in the previous one. You need.
But what's wrong with
and
that?
and it doesn't have an ending.
But there's
You
absolutely
know that
nothing
it's
wrong with
leading
the
to
part 1,
next
part
one.
2, part 3, part 4 that intertwine. I mean,
For me,
Star
there
Wars,
is.
for God's sake, Star Wars, the original
But
trilogy.
the original Star Wars was made as a standalone movie.
So was the original Terrifier.
And I think Empire Strikes Back is the worst of the first 3 because it's half a movie.
Whoa! What the?
It's the best one of
Now
all of them.
not. It's
everything
not, man.
makes sense now.
It is not. It's
Everything
half
makes
because
sense.
Because this
movie.
is Empire Strikes Back.
Well, exactly.
the ending-
The worst one. Yeah.
No, that's
Empire Strikes Back is a complete narrative. What the hell are you talking about?
No, it's half of a movie.
No, it's not.
No, it is not.
It doesn't have a full resolution.
this is
That's not true whatsoever. It ends on a cliffhanger, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a complete narrative.
Oh, yeah, like movies do.
Yes.
On a cliffhanger.
yeah, they have done
Bullshit.
since the dawn of movies.
Yeah, no, they have not. It's creating a movie with another movie completely planned following on from that. And I don't
Yeah, but
like
there's
that.
nothing wrong with no, I really disagree with you because The Empire Strikes Back is a genius film. It's incredible, and Terrifier 3 is really good as well.
It's got great elements, Hoth and
No,
the,
but
the freezing and
you can
cloud-
look at, you can
Yeah.
actually see the parallels there. You can see Sienna isn't quite ready to defeat Darth Vader, or in this case, Art the Clown. Like she's not there. She's Luke Skywalker, not fully formed in the same
Yeah.
way. And then you've got the Gary character who then is put in the basically frozen. Like she has gone down to the pits
Oh,
of
it is
hell.
kind of a good fit. Yeah.
It is The Empire Strikes Back.
Maybe that's part of why I hate it. And my fear is
but
that
she
the next
does-
one's going to be Empire Strikes Back as well. Where
No,
it's
the
not
last
got
one
a
is Return of the
resolution.
Jedi. This is
if
where
it's
Sienna
contained
gets
to a trilogy, or they're just going to just do this for 5 movies, 6 movies, 10 movies.
No, because Leone has already said he knows there's an ending. He sees an ending,
And at least
it's
with
coming.
Star Wars, I loved the first one. I didn't love Terrifier 2 either. So it's
Yeah.
tricky for me to like anything about the Terrifier movies other than the kills and
Oh
Art
no,
the
no!
Clown.
Oh god,
Yeah.
no, not at all. I mean, just I can't understand. I just don't.
You need a buffer.
Yeah.
Because it's just I came out of that just feeling like slashers were back. I
Yeah.
came out of seeing Terrifier going, wow, how incredible that a genre that I love, that we do a podcast about.
But it's not just Terrifier, right? We had in a Violent
back.
Nature this year, which is also a slasher.
Yeah, but it's not as big.
Yeah, and it's not.
No.
And it's not a franchise.
But slashers are still around, and there's still good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're
It's
not. They've not
it-
been the same since Scream.
In a Violent Nature is not number one in the world right now. Like,
No,
it's not.
and it makes me
it's
sad
not like
that
the
it's Terrifier and not some other movie.
No,
that
because
I think
that's
is
some
better.
artsy thing you're thinking of there.
Whoa. I like that film. I like
I'm
it.
not saying I'm not having a go at the film. I'm just thinking like that idea.
It's made for horror people
Yeah.
in a Violent Nature, whereas Terrifier is made for the general audience.
which is better. That's better.
Yeah.
That's better that it connects with so many more people than it being for gatekeeping community.
I'm not. I mean, I'm not saying people
am I
that
not
aren't
right?
into horror aren't going to enjoy it. It's just made for those people, and
does that?
And I'm one of those people, so obviously, I'm going to enjoy it more because
Yeah.
I'm a big horror guy. Which is maybe why I don't watch. Like, if someone watched Terrifier 3 and they weren't averse with slashers like I was, they'd think this best thing in the world because they've got no frame of comparison. I think it's subject to a
Yeah, but
little
I
bit
have a frame of
extra
comparison.
hype.
Well, you think that originality is the issue?
No, it's. Well, to a certain extent, yeah. I don't think it does, other than pushing it a bit further in terms of the kills. I don't think Terrifier 3 or any of them does anything extremely
What do you
original.
like about slashers?
The kills, yes.
Yeah.
But-
The formula.
Yeah, correct.
Then why? Yeah, but Scream breaks the formula.
But it does it in a clever way.
Oh, Terrifier does too, and they're different because obviously it's not meta film.
It does it in a grounded kind of. I'm not left with any questions when I watch Scream. Any questions that I think the answers would be bullshit.
But what's wrong with being left with questions about something that
When
we're
I
going to
don't
get more of?
I don't have confidence that the questions are going to be answered satisfactorily. It just makes me. It just fills me with a sense of like, I'm enjoying the experience, but the actual nitty gritties of
But
it.
why can you
I
not
have
just
an issue
enjoy that experience and just leave it at that for now?
Yeah.
and
Like, why does everything have to be wrapped up? Like, there's.
Well, I could watch
more
another
than
movie that gives me the great experience and also gives me that self-satisfaction.
yeah, but it's the story isn't done. The story isn't fully done.
But that is my problem.
But that's
No, the plot is complete though. It's a completely self-contained and fulfilling plot.
Yeah.
that's enriched if you've seen the previous film, and will be further enriched by the subsequent lore that's done, assuming it goes well. But if there's no other film, or Terrifier 4 sucks, or the lore sucks, it doesn't retrospectively. It doesn't harm 3. I don't believe.
I
And
think
it's
it's
not-
left with questions that could be sullied if the
No,
next
I don't.
one is
I
terrible.
don't, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I disagree with that.
yeah. I mean, it's no.
Because I haven't seen Terrifier 4
It's
yet. and I
standalone
enjoy it.
enough to have itself have its own identity as a movie,
Yeah.
but in a similar way to an episodic bit of a. Not even that strong. It's an episode of a TV show,
Yes. Well, yes, it is.
and that's my problem. That's one of my problems.
But, I mean, how do you differentiate that from any other sequel? Because Paul,
I don't want a sequel to lead in. I want it to be its own story, sink or swim.
well, with no hooks or anything to go into.
Correct. I don't like setting up the next movie. It feels consumerist. It feels capitalist. It
yeah, but
feels like,
we are capitalists. There wouldn't be movies if there
Marketing.
wasn't capitalism. You
I
get
don't-
some commie bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
I'm not saying I want to watch Worker and Parasite instead of
Yeah,
Itchy
exactly.
and
That's what I
Scratchy.
mean.
but I am saying it gives me a sense of cringe and disgust when it feels like I'm not given a full narrative. I'm sold on.
Yeah, but I'm really-
It's for, like, to name another one, right? The newest Spider-Man animated one, whatever it's called.
Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, better than the first one. But I have such a struggle with the fact that it's half of a movie.
It isn't half
It's
a
not.
movie.
It's
It is
still a
half of a movie.
complete. The plot is resolved.
No, it is
And then-
not.
Yes, it is.
If there never was another one, people would be like, what happened after that? If it's a complete narrative, wouldn't be.
No, you're...
Spider-Gwen is the
nobody looks at
protagonist of that
Titanic
film.
and they're like,
Her
oh,
plot
what
is
happened
resolved.
after that? It directly leads on to another movie, Spider-Man,
But-
whatever it's called.
I'm going to disagree with you on the idea that this is a capitalist film. This is so much
Oh no,
artistic.
it's definitely not a capitalist film.
No, but the
It's just
idea...
it's just a marketing maneuver, which is inherently
no, because there's so much love. I think you're missing the idea here that this film has so much love, in it. Like the everything involved in this film is still family orientated. Like it is an independent production that has not been sullied by the studio system.
Yeah, but that makes me wish I liked it rather than makes me like it.
No, it just adds to the idea of how much I like it, and it makes me like it even more. Like I liked it, and then I did the research and found this, and then I went, "Wow, how awesome! How awesome that this can be a thing in this day and age." It is showing everyone out there how pathetic they are that they can't make a good movie for $200 million, right? Because this did it on 2 million, and it's fully formed. It is so good for what it is.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees with that point. I do think that what Mike is saying is correct. That
wasn't a go on you. That was a go on all of those people out there who make films on 200 million, like Joker 2.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all going to be unanimously condemning budget.
Yeah, and
overblown.
it's not enough to make you like it just by that fact alone. Like that's not how art works.
No,
but because I have the same opinion of the film that you have, Joe, it does enrich my enjoyment of the film further, and I understand why, since you don't like the film, you just kind of lament not liking the film for that reason, right?
Yeah.
I understand all that. I just disagree. I disagree that the plot is.
I just disagree.
With everything about you.
It's so bizarre though, because usually we're in well, not all the time, but outside of a few like select movies, we're usually on point. And with the first two, we're exactly aligned, I think, but we've diverted with the third one.
It is fascinating.
Yeah,
and, I was very excited for you to watch it because I didn't expect to like number 3 as much as I did.
Well, maybe it's a difference in priming, right? If you went in not expecting it to be good, and I went in hearing both of you saying it was good.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. Like, I mean, I would honestly hope that we can challenge those thoughts, you know what I mean, and recognize them. But I mean, that does happen. Because I may have liked 2 more than you, but like I wasn't in a rush to rewatch it.
Well, I've never rewatched it.
Yeah. I haven't rewatched it either.
I remember enjoying parts of it, but feeling the absolute slog of the runtime.
Yeah, I really wanted to.
Yeah.
Really, really wanted to like it. I love that it was, that it had broken out, Terrifier 2, because I thought the Terrifier 1 was such an obscure film, essentially. And when I watched it, I was like, I feel like I'm one of 5 people in the world that have seen this film. At that time, and then a couple of years later to hear about a Terrifier 2, and then just to have it break out like it did, and then to be told that it, it's basically an unrated slasher that's going to be 2.5 hours long, and that everybody online was excited for it. I was like, what the hell is this? And then I watched it, and I really, really appreciated the step up between 1 and 2.
I love what it's doing for horror.
And
an independent film.
Yeah.
And I hope that he does keep making movies.
So this just brings shame on all those movies out there, like something like Joker 2, which couldn't do anything good with 200 million. The fact that it does this with $2 million basically shows you that studios need to start putting less money into films, but giving more creative control over. For me, that's all it shows, because you find these days that movies they don't take a chance. Studios don't take a chance on movies because they aren't made like they used to be. You've got your Blumhouses and things like that, but if you want to go really deep into just films in general, better films, like stop spending 100, 200, 300 million and then doubling it with your marketing, because no one wants to take a risk on that anymore. So we need to be able to start taking more risks, and to do that, Terrifier has proven that you can make a great film out of $2 million. The fact that it made a great film out of $250,000 as well. So I think that's just one of the big things I get a takeaway from this. Finally, with a few things I noted on the second viewing of it. I did like the parallel between the Sienna is in Sunny Valley, which is like the mental institution, and then you've got Art and Victoria in that really old school looking asylum, but they're both in a mental institution at the same time. So Victoria and Sienna as parallel between Final Girls. In that opening. Chris Jericho was great.
Yeah, fun to see him.
They said
you'd say that.
Yeah.
And Tom Savini. What
Yeah, that was fun.
yeah.
You loved that.
I did
You
not know
marked
he was
out.
going to be there.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the idea of the brother and sister element, and because they were so close,
Diverging paths.
and going down different routes, and the fact that Jonathan could have saved himself so many times if he'd faced up to the fact that he knew deep down that Art was back, but he didn't face up to that, and it was until it was too late. What's interesting is if you look at the text he writes when Sienna goes to visit him, he says it's getting worse. Sienna was here, it's getting worse. He was going to send that to the auntie. Now in Terrifier 2, it is the mother who is thinking that Jonathan is getting worse, that he has a mental instability, and keeps saying to Sienna that, oh, we need to do something with him. And Sienna is defending him every step of the way, whereas Jonathan stops defending his sister within the movie. So there's this interesting parallel between how Jonathan in the last movie was the one who might have had mental issues, and in this one, it's Sienna, and how she deals with that, and how Jonathan deals with that as well, because he's just trying to do a normal life, but everything around him, like the girl, the true crime,
Yeah.
which I liked as a character. She was more basic than some of the more well-developed characters, but I like the idea that she represents this part of podcasting and a part of life where these true crime podcasts are presented in a way that they're not thinking of the human behind them. They just like the idea of this killer.
Yeah,
but
it's
there's
like
no heart in
exploitative.
it.
Yeah.
You know, there's some that are really good. You've got The Teacher's Pet, which is the Australian one, which came out some years ago, which actually helped resolve the murder and get the guy who did it jailed. Whereas you've got these more exploitative ones like what this represents. So I like the idea of that and how Jonathan and Sienna have
Well, that
become
happens on the
infamous.
internet all the time anyway, doesn't it? Like Reddit's famous for
Yeah,
having,
yeah.
like multiple times now naming the wrong person as the perpetrator of a terrorist attack or that kind of thing. Yeah.
Internet detectives. Yeah.
You know, and how they're all saying just move on to Sienna, let it go, and all she's trying to do is that. But
You're bringing it back every time you open your mouth.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I liked all of that idea of that. I mean, I love that shower sequence with Art,
Oh yeah.
That is brilliant.
and then when he
Great
kills
kill.
those two, and like just
the best killer.
and
best
again-
killer of the movie.
Again, they're like
Yeah.
doubling because he got criticised, didn't he, Damien Leone, in the first one for that kill.
oh yeah, going down the
So-
from
so-
vagina downwards.
Yeah. So the second one, he like killed, like it's 2 and 3, right? He goes for the testicles.
yeah,
Like, I'm not sexist. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, but people still claim it of Terrifier 3 somewhat bizarrely, even though he kills multiple men in it.
What, sexist?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are calls.
misogynist,
Yeah,
yeah.
there are calls out there that is misogynist movie.
Really? What is that?
I
But
think
then
it's-
again, a lot of that happens with every slasher, so
I think
maybe in this day and age it gets overblown, but I have seen it. Yeah.
you could argue though the character of Art is deeply misogynistic. Like the idea that all the worst kills, the men get off a lot easier than the women do. Before this movie, let's take this one out of with his penis getting cut first. Let's take that out of the question. But the idea that all the worst ones are deeply misogynistic as a human character, he's now a demonic character, but as a human character, he has issue with women, doesn't he? Because in with the homeless woman in the first film, you get to see a little bit of him when he sucks his thumb and like lays on her, and then later on she's dead. And they find her dead. So he has this issue with women in general and a deep-seated hate for them. So the character of Art is deeply misogynist, but you've got to understand that
you can't
Leone's...
transplant characterization to
No.
the movie
For
as a
endorsement.
And
Yeah.
He's
no,
the villain.
exactly. And Leone, he sees himself as Sienna, not as Art. But he sees when he's envisioning making these films, he is actually envisioning the kills, and then he can weave it in. So these kills, he loves thinking about them, and he actually goes about 10 feet over the line, like crossing that line by a long way. And he writes it down as it is, and then he pulls it back. So some of these kills that you see, how brutal, like the child murdering and everything was probably a lot more brutal than it actually turned out in the film. But obviously they want it to be somewhere where it can still be put in the general public domain and cinemas, and not just like basically called out as a snuff film or something.
Yeah, they don't want to get like suppressed distribution and that kind of thing. Push the boundaries, but not so far that you have to cut entire hard work made for the movie. Yeah.
I actually think that's the beauty of the practical effects in these films, because I don't like always love gore. It depends on the tone of the film, and it's very excessive.
Yeah, it can't be the only reason for that.
Yeah. But it's so gratuitous that it's actually easier to suspend your disbelief, and it's actually in a way less impactful,
especially because of the comedic nature of the murderer. It's almost kind of like ironic. It's more
and you still wince and react, but it's all kind of in good fun. It always feels in a way
and that levity is always, you need that. If this film was gritty as sin and just had no levity and no Sienna, it wouldn't work, because it would just be awful,
hostile kind of.
And you don't it wouldn't be what it is now without that. So this is the fun part, the where I might disagree with your take on these things, but the fun part now is that we get to guess what might happen next, because we know there's going to be a new one, we know there's going to be another one, and we have clues. We have some interesting tidbits from the end of it, like her hands healing up and stuff, about what happens to these characters next. And there will be another one. He's already said there will be a Terrifier 4. So let's get our take on what we think Terrifier 4 might be, or where they might go with these characters. Mike?
You're asking me first.
Yeah. Where do you see this going?
He's already flirted with the idea of a secondary killer or a secondary antagonist. So my guess, completely unfounded and probably in error, would be, if I was to put it in Joker terms, he's going to add a Harley Quinn, or he's going to add...
Well, he already has a Harley Quinn.
Well, Victoria.
And then previously it was the little girl.
Yeah, but there's... The demons occupying this person to keep him alive, right? Maybe there's another person.
Victoria's now been beheaded, so I'm not sure where
maybe there's
Art
another
goes
person that also needs to be kept alive, right?
If it was me, Jonathan.
Well, bring him, even though he's beheaded, bring him back
that's
as a...
fucking mad, is it?
Yeah,
I was beheaded.
He's a bit small though for
in a year or so he'll be grown up, he'll be fine. I don't know. Like I really thought it was interesting that they didn't have his kill on screen. I thought that was a very interesting choice.
And they also teased that, because we know it isn't Gabby, but they teased that it was her. So there's always that doubt
that maybe it's not Jonathan.
Yeah.
What I would kind of like to see, I don't think it will go this way, but I would be interested to see, is if they take not a huge amount, but a little bit from Freddy Krueger and give him some, being as though he's backed by this demon now, apparently, give him some, and we're pointing ourselves in the direction of fantasy, give him some more fantastical methodology. Maybe you can alter his surroundings or shapeshift, manifest himself a weapon of some way. Yeah.
Interesting. Dave, what about you? Where do you see this franchise going next?
Yeah, I do believe it's going to be more fantastical. I don't know. I don't want them to make Art himself more fantastical, because what I loved about the final scene was that they were able to basically have their cake and eat it with Art and Vicky, where she becomes the voice of the antagonist, right? And she's explicitly a supernatural character. Yeah, she's doing all kinds of magic shit, like trying to possess her, but he's always Art. He's
they protect what was, but add new.
Yeah. So like I would like them to go more supernatural, to be honest, but I want him to always be the same. And I also think that the next one will be about Sienna. We're going to get her backstory, and she's going to become a superhuman.
It's going to be like an origin story.
Well, I mean, it's already
an origin story. Well, an origin isn't like from birth of Peter Parker to it's an origin story of how they became supernatural.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And maybe there'll be like angels versus demons, like this kind of like
Tom Hanks
symbology. She's not going to be
Dan Brown the writer.
She's not going to be an angel, but like they already had her wearing like a winged suit.
Valkyrie.
The Valkyrie.
Yeah, I
think they're going to lean more into that. I think he's going to have... I want him, Art, to have a different assistant again. Another vessel for the demon. Yeah, I was thinking Jonathan, just to kind of keep him around if he's dead. But make it more transgressive in some way. I don't know, make it a baby or some shit.
So-
To make it fun.
And a whole clown car's worth of like funky different
I don't know.
clowns. Like,
and finally, like the final act will be a supernatural setting. Also, like they'll go into hell this time.
yeah,
because
yeah.
they've
You're not
teased
not
it
the-
2 times.
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street shenanigans once again. I think it's definitely gonna. It's already pivoting, but it's gonna pivot more in the Nightmare on Elm Street direction than the straight, because it's slowly becoming not a straight slasher. It's becoming like a fantastical Nightmare on Elm Street style.
Yeah,
slasher.
like it's going to be because they're going to want to keep art as art for as long as they can, because that's people. We want art kills all the way through the film, right? Just like in this one.
yeah.
But event like they're right on the precipice now of like the law overtaking the story, and it will, I think, reach a point where art's not going to be swanning around, interacting with people and killing them. I think like the final act will really be fully
Yeah,
supernatural.
art in a public place is great dotted throughout the movie, when they can put art in scenarios where he's with other people that aren't the main cast.
Yeah,
and he can
and
just do some really
just
cool
treat
kills.
him as
Great.
just some guy. That's
I mean
the thing.
that's
Yeah.
fun, and they want to keep that up,
Yeah.
but especially at the beginning. I think that
But the end of this
plot-
movie was different too. to the rest
yeah,
of that.
exactly. So they're
it
gonna
will
do
be the
more.
same.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see this. We've seen this at Christmas now. We've seen Sienna crowned, and we've seen the Virgin Mary in that segment where she's in this world, and someone's creating that suit of armor for her. I see her now with being able to heal as rebirthing like Jesus. I see this as the second coming. I see the next one at Easter. I can see this now happening. I can see Art dressed up as Easter Bunny. I see.
Well, I definitely want that.
I see scenarios where he's like with the chocolate and the all of that fun stuff that could happen there, and an Easter Bunny like chocolate hunt and things like this. So I see her character going into biblical terms, and that she is like Jesus and he is like the devil. So I see this God versus Satan scenario coming in, and it's going to just go off the rails because that's where they have to go. And I think they are going to go somewhere like hell, because she's got to get Gabby back as well. So I'm seeing all of that coming. And I think they're probably going to try and do something like a seasonal, because it's worked so well with the horror at Christmas element. There's not many like Easter horror
That's
movies.
kind of a dead zone for good ones anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so I can see this potentially. Maybe he tries it, maybe not. But there's so many clues about her, almost her hands being taken away with the crown. Art destroys her hands.
Yeah, I mean it's very like
and then
explicit religious,
and then she has the
imagery.
cuts.
Yeah.
It's
like,
very
right, the
religious,
crucifixion.
and you see the Virgin Mary with that creature creating the armor for her. So I'm starting to see that in biblical terms, and I see something like that happening. And I hope something crazy, whack shit.
Whack shit.
Whack shit.
Whack shit, crazy.
I like that, yeah. Some absolutely whack shit.
Put that on the thumbnail.
Whack shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I see something like that happening.
Okay, I do want it to be another holiday one. I don't know if they'll do it again. Easter's a really good idea because it's not done very often. But the one I really want is Valentine's Day.
Could
you imagine how good that would be?
Art with a
That would
card.
work.
Oh, he's so adorable.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for him at the
little
end of the
Cupid.
movie.
And he
Cupid wings.
plays Cupid at different,
Yeah.
between different couples or whatever, and then just murders them at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Or there's a waiter in a. You imagine him as a waiter, like going in on a like.
And he's like Mr. Beaning it.
Yeah.
And stuff. And then, but because of the charming clown man, they're like, oh, yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
there's so many things they could.
I mean,
do.
there's lots of. They could take an Evil Dead page out of Evil Dead's book and take it back in history if they wanted to. I mean, if the budget goes up every time, right? You could sustain
Yeah,
yourself
yeah,
on
that
like.
would be brilliant.
Yeah, take
man.
it back to like Jester times. And
Yeah,
it's
like
gotta be
when
a Jester to
when
the king.
mimes are common.
Can I see Art taking over from Henry VIII? He's a Tudor now.
Yeah.
King
man.
Art.
King Art, crowned, and he's like on the. on the
He's
throne.
there at the guillotine, like deciding who.
Yeah,
goes.
beheading. Oh my god, how good is
Yeah.
the possibilities are
Yeah.
endless.
And then put him in space. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah. Usually it's the fourth or fifth one.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
space.
yeah,
So yeah,
Art in the Hood.
yeah. Follow the leprechaun, the rockiest road of the leprechaun franchise. Yeah.
All right, lovely. Right then, on that,
on that bombshell.
What's your rating?
It's a 7 out of 10.
7.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's a pretty good
That's
rating,
good.
to be fair.
Yeah, as I say, I don't hate it. I just wish it was better. I wish it was more for me. Yeah.
Dave.
8.5.
Okay.
That's insane.
I hope I gave The Substance a 9, but I'm saying 8.5 for this.
Okay. An 8.5. I think Apocalypse Now's got an 8.5 on IMDb.
All right.
I like this better. And you, Joe?
This is my favorite movie of the year. I love this movie.
More than The Substance?
More than The Substance.
No way,
Yeah,
really?
I prefer this.
Horror movie or just movie?
Just movie. I love it. It's
great.
the film that has given me the adrenaline rush
It's better than June
of
2.
the year. And I don't give a shit. I'm thinking about this now. Stop derailing me.
Well, you said the thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is top all of that for me because it is, as I've said, a slasher villain for us, like everyone. Leone is like giving us this as a generation, and we now have our own. We have a Michael Myers of the 21st century right here.
Oh man, I didn't know you loved the movie this much.
Oh, I love it.
You're like the biggest fan.
I absolutely adore it because of
Yeah.
that. And it's just pushes boundaries, but it doesn't go too far. He just winches up a little bit. It's the #1 movie in the world. I love horror films, and this is championing horror films right now. It is overtaking everything. Who would have thought that coming out in between Joker and Smile, that this would be #1 right now in the world? It's insane.
I mean, if Smile comes out and tanks, it could
It
continue
could
its
sustain
reign.
it.
Yeah.
You know, it's laughable to me that it has taken Joker on like that and won. They're both clown movies, and this is just absolutely. It is Art the Clown. That motherfucker hard. Like he has just gone straight with the chainsaw at the balls of the Joker and demolished him. And fuck you, Joker. So it's all about Art the Clown now. Go away. You're done. And it even has the comic book element to it as well. And it's doing it better than DC have done it for the last 20 years since The Dark Knight. So on that note,
Also not hard to do, but DC sucks.
giving this a 10 out of 10.
Is that
Ding, 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 ding.
First 10 out of
It's
10.
coming up
First one.
First one of the show. It's getting my golden buzzer in Britain's Got Talent.
Are you putting it above The Descent, Joe?
the podcast favorite?
That is also 10 out of 10. I don't know. I don't
Halloween
know.
as well.
I don't know if I can do that. Maybe.
Oh.
But I
If that,
genuinely
like 2 years, 4 years from now, we should do another
Yeah.
top list thing.
Yeah.
Like the episode 0.
But honestly, I genuinely love this. I love the fact that Leone is such inspiration, and personally an inspiration because of where he is, where I am, and what I want to do, what maybe we want to do, and just where we go with it from there. And I think Leone has shown that you can make a living out of something you love, and he's done such a grand job at it. So good on you.
Yeah,
And good
well,
on this
he's up
franchise.
there with, your George Romero's and person that made Blair Witch and person that made Paranormal Activity.
We're so glad you're the expert.
And Quentin Tarantino and these kind of people, these like champions of independent movie making. Yeah.
So yeah, if anything else, thank you for that. And check out the Talk Is Jericho podcast where he's on that on the actual night, on the press night of this. Chris Jericho and Leone talk, and with David Howard Thornton, they're all on the podcast
really?
together. It's really cool. It's only about an hour, so it'd be probably shorter than this. So go there next. And there's another one on YouTube, which is like build part 1 and part 2, and on Sirius XFM. No, that's Carl Pilkington, XM, which is a really good like talk where he talks about all the production and what they've done, how they created the kills. Yeah, really interesting stuff. And he's really honest and open about all the struggles to do with the movie and how he's got to this point to success. It's not an overnight success. Art the Clown's been around for a good 20 years. Just now people are taking notice. And they will continue to do so until the next Terrifier. In all the memes and GIFs and how people hate their lives, and we'll show that through art memes. So
you mean they're the new Minions memes?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gonna get tired and overdone. Yeah.
And on that terrible disappointment, on that bombshell, it's time to go. And thank you so much. Do like, share, subscribe. Let us know what you think, because I think it's going to divide opinions this one.
Yeah, this is one of the most polarizing ones we've done.
Yeah.
So if you want to say,
and it's
like,
great.
if you want to back me up, 2 against 1.
Yeah.
Well, no.
But
we need more ammunition against you. Is what we need in the comments.
But I genuinely think it's great to have those differing opinions between us, because otherwise it would just be like a fucking circle jerk, and we don't want that.
Yeah.
We're not academia, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.